30 years old. Today's one of those days when life throws you a curveball and you have no choice but to roll with it. I walk into the conference hall for what's supposed to be just another industry event, a sea of familiar faces from the mobile manufacturing world. I'm trying to find a quiet corner to grab a drink when suddenly I hear his voice. Jacob. It's been 2 years since our divorce, but he still manages to get under my skin. He's standing with a group, talking loudly, just as I remember him. The same old Jacob, always seeking the spotlight, needing validation. His gaze flickers towards me, and I feel the weight of his disapproving eyes. He's not saying anything directly, but his comments are pointed, hinting at the past we shared, our failed marriage, and the business I now lead. I steel myself, knowing I need to remain composed. He has this way of making me question myself, of trying to diminish my accomplishments. But I'm not the same person I was before. I've come a long way since then, and I refuse to let him undermine me, especially not here. I decide to ignore him and focus on the conversations around me, engaging with industry colleagues who respect my position in the business. I catch snippets of Jacob's words drifting across the room, but I push them aside. He's still trying to provoke me, still bitter about how things turned out. I take a deep breath, reminding myself that I'm stronger than his petty jabs. He doesn't have power over me anymore. I'm determined to move past this, to not let this unexpected encounter derail the progress I've made. I make small talk, smile, and nod at the right moments, but my thoughts keep circling back to Jacob. His presence is a reminder of the pain I've endured, but also of my resilience. As the event progresses, I feel my confidence returning. Yes, he's here, and yes, he still manages to stir up emotions I'd rather keep buried. But this is my story now. I'm not defined by our past, and I won't let him dictate my future. Looking back on those early days with Jacob, it's almost hard to believe how hopeful we were. Our marriage began with grand dreams of building a future together. I remember the excitement of our first home and the late-night talks about our ambitions. I thought we were on the same page, but life has a way of revealing truths you don't want to see. Infertility was our first real challenge. We faced it together at first. But as the months turned into years, something shifted. I was devastated, feeling like my body was failing us, but Jacob's patience started to wear thin. He became distant, less supportive, and it was clear that our struggles were taking a toll on him too. The pressure we faced broke the foundation we had built. His late nights away from home grew more frequent. Excuses about work, about needing space, started piling up. I wanted to believe him, to trust that he was just coping in his own way. But deep down, I knew things weren't right. Our conversations became tense and filled with unspoken resentment. I was losing my husband, and it felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't stop it. Eventually, the truth came out. He had been seeing Andrea, a younger woman who didn't carry the same burdens our marriage had placed on us. The confrontation was messy, and the divorce even messier. I was hurt, but mostly I was angry at him, at myself, and at the world for turning our life upside down. I threw myself into work, determined to prove that I could hold my own. I took on more responsibilities in the family business, using my ambition as a shield against the pain. My father believed in me, even when I didn't fully believe in myself. With his support, I learned how to navigate the challenges of leadership. I started to find my footing despite everything. The past still haunts me sometimes, but I've learned to live with it. I realize now that those days with Jacob taught me valuable lessons about strength and resilience. It's a bittersweet reflection, but it's my reality, and I've come to terms with it. As much as I tried to ignore it, Jacob's behavior kept growing more suspicious. He'd become distant, his excuses for late nights more frequent. Then, one day, I overheard a phone call that shattered any remaining trust. He was speaking softly, his tone affectionate in a way he no longer used with me. I knew then that my worst fears had come true. I decided to gather evidence, though it pained me to do so. It didn't take long to confirm my suspicions. Andrea's name was all over his phone, their messages, and calls more frequent than I could stomach. When I confronted him, there was no denial, no attempt to justify his actions. He simply looked at me with a coldness that made my blood run cold. The man I had married was gone. The divorce was inevitable, but it was a fight neither of us could win. It was drawn out and ugly, each of us trying to hold on to whatever dignity we had left. The process was emotionally draining, stripping away the last vestiges of our life together. But in the end, I walked away with my head held high, determined not to let Jacob's betrayal define me. Through it all, I had the support of my family. My father was my rock, his unwavering belief in me giving me the strength to keep going. The business became my sanctuary, a place where I could pour my energy and leave the pain behind. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the routine and the sense of purpose it provided. Jacob may have broken my heart, but he didn't break my spirit. I emerged from the divorce stronger, more determined to build a future for myself. I realized that I was capable of more than I had ever imagined, and that my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's opinion of me. After the divorce, my focus shifted entirely to my work. My family business became my haven, and I embraced every challenge it brought. My father was there to guide me, and together we navigated the ever-changing landscape of the industry. He knew I needed the distraction, and he supported me wholeheartedly. Gradually, life began to feel normal again. The sting of Jacob's betrayal didn't hurt as much, and my self-worth wasn't tied to his opinions anymore. The company thrived under my leadership, and I felt a sense of accomplishment I hadn't experienced in a long time. In the midst of it all, I met someone who would bring light back into my life. He worked for my family's business as my assistant, and his kindness and patience stood out. At first, I was hesitant to open up, afraid of being hurt again. But he was persistent, gently breaking down the walls I'd built around my heart. Slowly, I allowed myself to trust again. We spent time together outside of work, and I found myself smiling more often. He reminded me what it felt like to be truly seen, to be cared for without ulterior motives. My family was supportive, glad to see me finding happiness after everything I'd been through. Meanwhile, Jacob was on a downward spiral. I heard bits and pieces from mutual acquaintances, his financial troubles, his strained relationship with Andrea. But I distanced myself from it all, refusing to be pulled back into his world of chaos. My focus was on building a new life for myself, one where I could thrive without him. Each day, I became more confident in my choices. My family business flourished, and my personal life was blossoming too. I had faced adversity and come out stronger, ready to embrace the future that awaited me. With each passing day, my new relationship began to feel more like a fresh start and less like a gamble. I was no longer dwelling on the past, instead focusing on the joy and excitement of what was ahead. My assistant turned out to be more than just a supportive colleague. He became my partner in every sense. Together, we explored new places, sharing laughter and creating memories that made the dark days seem like a distant memory. He brought warmth back into my life, filling the empty spaces Jacob had left behind. For the first time in years, I felt truly happy. My family welcomed him with open arms, relieved to see me smiling again. My father, in particular, seemed to approve. He could see how well we complemented each other, both at work and in life. It was a testament to the strength I had regained, allowing myself to love again without fear. In the meantime, Jacob's life continued to unravel. I heard whispers of his financial struggles and the strain it was putting on his marriage to Andrea. He was living proof of the consequences of deceit, and it seemed his actions had finally caught up to him. I chose not to dwell on his troubles, knowing that my focus needed to stay on my own happiness. We worked hard, my partner and I, building the business while nurturing our relationship. Each day brought new challenges, but we faced them together. I felt empowered, no longer burdened by the shadows of my past. Instead, I embraced the future with open arms, ready to write a new chapter in my life. As I walked into the event, I felt a sense of pride. My family's company had made significant strides, and I was here to network and further solidify our business ties. My partner stood by my side, and we exchanged pleasantries with industry colleagues. For once, my past felt firmly behind me. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, Jacob, with Andrea by his side. The sight was jarring, but I steeled myself, determined not to let him rattle me. He looked worn down, his once sharp